Darkcast Network. Welcome to the dark side of podcasting.
Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way, motherfucker. The devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Fall to your knees. Devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way.
Mountain Murders is an Appalachian true crime podcast. Some content may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
We say fuck a lot. Hey, y'all, welcome back to Mountain Murders. I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
Hey, Dylan, how's it going?
It's going great.
A little late with our episode.
A little late, but better late than never.
Better late than ugly, I always say.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's why it takes me 10 minutes to get ready.
Yes, we're coming to you from the Mountain Murder Studio on the road, currently in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
You don't have to tell people where we are.
Yeah, if you
What if we have stalkers?
them stalkers, they can't get a ride out of the county. I'm not worried about my ops.
You're not worried about your ops?
No,
Well,
they're riding around on donuts.
Oh.
They can't go on the interstate, y'all.
That's very specific. It's very specific, Dylan.
It's very true.
I'm really glad to be here with you to record our podcast. You know, it is like the best part of the week.
I'm so glad to be back talking to the listeners. How much better does it get?
Dylan, I have dug up a case that I'm pretty sure has never been on a podcast before.
What?
So again, we're the first.
Ah, yes. Once again,
Your first time.
You're my first time. I want to be special.
Let's give a big shout out to this week's sponsors. Dylan, we've had a lot of activity over on Patreon. We've had so many wonderful listeners subscribe, support the show. Thank you, Charles, Gabe, Christy, Deborah, and Chastity.
Whoa.
Yeah, they are our newest patrons who are sponsoring today's episode. Thank you so much. We hope you enjoy all of the bonus content there. And we will continue with our Haunted Castle series, Dylan. We're going to have a brand new Haunted Castle episode out this week for our patrons.
And my little Discord link's been weird lately. So if I missed you and you want to get in on the fun, and you are a patron, hit me up at mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com and I will get you in the Discord fam.
There you go, Dylan. Let's get into today's case.
Let's go. I can't wait to hear what it's about.
Well, the 1960s started off as the dawn of the golden age for most Americans. During his presidential campaign that year, John F. Kennedy promised the most ambitious domestic agenda since the New Deal. It offered a package of laws and reforms that sought to eliminate injustice and inequality in the United States. The previous year had seen the deaths of music greats Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper. The lunar probe Pioneer 4 became the first American object to escape Earth's gravity.
Allegedly. I'm just kidding.
The LA Dodgers beat the Chicago White Sox, winning their second World Series title. And in this great year, Dylan, wonderful strides for women everywhere. Pantyhose were first sold. The future was looking bright.
Ah, yes.
More freedom of movement.
You had to get...
In those pantyhose, you didn't have to worry about the garter belts. You could kick. You could stretch and kick and stretch.
Oh, so later on, I think people would be like, oh, gosh, pantyhose. But so when they came out, it was a revolution.
It was a revolutionary idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what else are robbers going to put over their face to distort their image?
Exactly. So as you can see, 1960, big things happening. It really sort of set the stage for the decade. And I think the 1960s, such a memorable decade. There was a lot happening.
There was a lot going on. And just, politicians say stuff. But for Kennedy to say this is the biggest program or deal or whatever since the New Deal is a really bold statement, because the New Deal was obviously a huge point in American history when they were trying to uplift everyone up out of poverty, get over the depression, all that mess.
Yet the 1950s had been a time for upheavals towards music, attitudes, new fashions. It was the rise of a youth culture Americans had not seen. Like before that, kids were to be seen and not heard. But with the 1950s, businesses, companies started marketing toward the youth. You know, you had this music, you had the birth of rock and roll music come to the forefront, and it was really like for young people.
I have a voice, Dad. Yeah, one prime example of exactly what you're describing as far as companies saying, hey, there's this whole market of, young people with, money in their pocket was jeans. Originally denim was known as a worker man's uniform, basically.
Hey, worker man.
Yeah, they were known to be rugged and hardy, and basically carpenters, laborers, people like that, were the people in factories. It wasn't cool to wear jeans outside of that setting, and they set their sights on the youth. And as we know, even in our day, growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, denim was a big deal.
Baby's got her blue jeans on, and she ain't looking back.
God, the acid wash.
The button fly.
It was a big deal.
Teenagers started disobeying their parents, getting kicked out of school, and fighting back against authority. Dylan, we had all these rebels without causes.
And clues.
When the baby boom started in 1946, producing more babies, those children grew up not feeling socially accepted by society. The sudden pull from conservative views changed all aspects of life, and we're still experiencing those impacts today. So some of this, I believe, is going to set the stage for our story.
So basically, to recap, you had a lot going on.
On Saturday, January 16th of 1960, 17-year-old Maryville. Now, I'm trying to say it correctly because when you say Maryville, people in Tennessee are like, it's Maryville. They get very upset.
It's Maryville.
It's Maryville. High school student Joanna Gail Huffstetler went to Knoxville to spend the evening with a friend, Mrs. Margaret Davis, who happened to be a divorcee.
Ooh.
Now, Joanna was born to parents Paul Mack, he was known as Mack, and May Huffstetler on November 21st of 1942. They had 4 children, Dorothy, Lester, Phyllis, and Joanna. Joanna's parents divorced when she was 2 years old, and Father Paul hadn't seen Joanna much in the time after. May remarried 2 more times, each ending in divorce, which was very scandalous during this period.
Well, yeah, they did not take that lightly back then. Not to say people didn't get divorced, but it was a big deal.
Well, if you had one divorce, that was a big deal, but to be divorced 3 times?
Oh, my God.
Yes. Not much is known about Joanna's life. I tried to dig in, learn more about her, but there's really not a lot of information out there, Dylan. On that evening in January, she left home wearing a red sweater, a white blouse, a tan skirt, and a pair of black high-heel shoes. Joanna joined Margaret Davis and 2 other married women, Ann Self and Vivian Horner, for a night out on the town. After finding fun at several Knoxville dancing spots, the 4 women went to the Indian Rock Bar and Grill, a Rutledge Pike roadhouse that was often in the news for the wrong reasons. Now, none of the women had dates for the evening, by the way.
Oh, so it's a
girls' night.
Girls' night, and they're going to the roadhouse.
To the Indian Rock Bar and Grill, yes. A roadhouse.
Oh, my God. I wonder if Dalton's working the door.
This sounds, just from what I could gather in the newspapers of the time, there were various articles about this establishment. It was kind of a wild, rough and tumble place. Like, I guess what people would describe back in the day as just an old honky-tonk or an old beer joint.
A beer joint.
A beer joint.
Here in the South, the term beer joint says it all.
It means, it has a very different connotation from like a bar or tavern or pub.
Yes.
When somebody's going to a beer joint, you almost always expect there's probably going to be a rough crowd.
Gambling, playing pool.
Some fighting.
Some ladies causing some trouble. I'm not blaming the ladies, but just their presence caused trouble in the place like this, because you got one guy trying to, he doesn't know who's who. You got the stranger who doesn't, know all the politics of the bar. He's trying to hit on that hot bleach blonde, dollar store blonde.
Bombshell.
Hey,
man, there's nothing wrong with a dollar store blonde.
There isn't. She's over by the jukebox.
I'll have you know, my Nana had plenty of good times at the Roadhouse with her bleach blonde hair.
She's dancing salaciously by the jukebox.
Okay, so funny story, Dylan, right off the bat. When I was a kid, my hair, I was very, very, very blonde, like almost white-headed, right?
You was toe-headed.
They called me a towhead. And when people would be like, your hair is so beautiful, where did you get your hair? Strangers, I would say Eckerd's, because that's where my Nana bought her hair dye, because my Nana was a bleach blonde.
Yeah. So you Eckerd's.
Eckerd's.
Nice.
Drugstore.
And you're just a little kid with a little toe-headed kid.
Yes.
Where did you get your hair?
Yes. And so that was kind of a running joke in my family, that because I would tell people Eckerd's.
Now, have you ever been to what we're describing as a beer joint? I've been to more than one, honestly.
I worked in a place like this
Oh, wow.
years ago. It was like a biker bar.
Ah,
And yeah,
real bikers.
it was a little rough, but everybody was, I mean, I was a bartender, but everybody was super cool with me,
Right.
you know. But yeah, there at times things would get a little excitable.
Yeah, it's almost a dive bar, a real dive bar
yeah.
before dive bars were cool.
Right.
A hole in the wall.
Yeah, absolutely.
All they got is lukewarm beer and danger on the menu. And probably a tasty hamburger.
Well, you know, Dylan, I have to say, I had a feller who would come in during the day shift, and he loved to watch soap operas.
Oh,
The Young and the Restless.
he wanted to see his stories.
And he would be like, you know, what? Oh, he had a term for scandal. He had a word that he would use for scandalous, but it wasn't. It was like a variation of scandalous.
Yeah, an improper variation of the word scandalous.
Yes.
Okay.
And he would be telling me about the character. Anyway, it was quite a fun time.
So here we are, girls' night out. They're heading to the dive bar beer joint.
Yeah, they just want to go do some dancing.
Dancing.
Dancing. They want to go jitterbug at the honky tonk,
Oh, yeah, baby.
right? Maybe slow down to a little Patsy Cline or something.
You never know where the night might take you.
While at Indian Rock, Joanna bumped into Leroy Willis Young, who was known as Sprout.
That's a great
It
nickname.
is quite a nickname. He was a barroom Lothario whom she'd met back in 1958. Sprout was old enough at 37 to be Joanna's father, but the thrice married man who referred to himself as Rattlesnake Daddy was quite a ladies' man.
Wait. Sprout's known as Rattlesnake Daddy as well?
Yeah.
So he gets to be Sprout and Rattlesnake Daddy?
Yeah.
Okay.
You wish
Hey, buddy.
you could be the Rattlesnake Daddy.
Save some nicknames for the rest of us.
Well, I'm going to give you a little info right now. Sprout was obsessed with the song Rattlesnake Daddy, which was described as a hillbilly pop song, what we would know today as rockabilly.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
And this song was made popular in the late 1930s by a singer named Bill Carlisle. However, Sprout, who sang the song often at bars around Knoxville, would tell people, quote, "That's my song, I wrote it."
Oh, okay. So he's claiming the royalty rights from the song.
Well, in the days before, you know, the Google, the internet search machine, Dylan, a person could kind of get away with telling lies because there wasn't a way to fact check.
Yeah.
Now, not so much. But there was some speculation. Well, when we get into our crime, there was speculation that he wrote the song because he told people he did.
Oh.
And they actually had to have kind of an expert come in and give them the background on the song and that he did not write it.
So he repeated this falsehood so many times. People took
believed
They
it.
took it for truth. Because why would Rattlesnake Daddy lie to you? I mean, honestly.
I mean, that's kind of a badass.
You'd be like, who's
name.
Rattlesnake? You know, Sprout.
Like, instead of just call me daddy, I want you to call me the Rattlesnake Daddy.
I can't do a snake noise. I want to do the rattler noise.
I'm a snack.
I'm a snake. Don't step on me.
Now, by evening's end, Joanna had paired off with Sprout. The pair departed for the Blue Circle, which was a little cafe on East Magnolia Street. Joanna hadn't seen Sprout Young in some time, but the pair ordered hamburgers, sodas, and french fries at this late night coffee shop. It was also called a drive-in, so I'm assuming you could drive up, park.
Curb service.
Absolutely. The pair were seen laughing and having a good time. So just reconnecting, joking and coking, eating some burgers and fries.
Sounds like a good night.
Which sounds pretty tasty about right now.
I would like to have a burger and fries and a big old ice cold, well, I'm going to say it, a beer.
Witchcraft, the occult, extremist beliefs, murder. Tune in to Rogue Darkness each Friday and join host Raven as I uncover horrific crimes committed under the misconceptions and misunderstandings of witchcraft and other belief systems. I'll cover a wide range of crimes involving ritualistic killings and extremist beliefs to cult persuasion and supposed possession. Anything and everything that borders the line of horrifying. There's always 3 sides to a story. Side A, Side B, and then the truth. Let's uncover the truth together and explore the darkness of mankind, one crime at a time. Available wherever you get your podcast fix, simply by searching Rogue Darkness.
If I was drinking,
I know,
right
but
now.
we're dieting, so we
We
can't
are
have-
dieting.
so we cannot have those things.
I mean, I'm a week into 60 days dry, and that's fine. I told you I'm gonna have no problem with that. But if we're gonna wish big. An old man told me that. Wish good. You really make your wish worth it.
Around 4 a.m., Margaret Douglas awakened to find that Joanna hadn't come in from their night out. Douglas, who had hosted Joanna on numerous occasions, stated it wasn't like the young girl at all to just not show up. Like, she never stayed out all night. Even if she was having a good time, she always ended up at Margaret's apartment.
Yeah, and that's instantly going to give you worry about someone who is always punctual, always, takes care of their responsibilities no matter what. And that's just instantly going to give you pause when that person breaks that normal cycle.
Margaret assumed she had gotten a ride back to Maryville, where she lived with her mother. When Joanna failed to show up on Sunday morning, May was worried, her mother concerned. It was unlike her daughter to be late, not call. Eventually, May contacted Joanna's father, Paul, to let him know her daughter hadn't arrived home after learning from Margaret that Joanna had never made it back from the Blue Circle on Saturday night. So it was the pair of parents that actually reported Joanna missing. On Wednesday morning, a sand and gravel worker named Charlie Newcomb came across a female body. It was half buried under a pile of old boxes and tires on the side of a wooded bluff near the Knoxville riverfront. And this area, Dylan, was kind of known as Stinky Point.
Ew. Yeah.
And if you're from Knoxville, you know the area. It's located on Front Avenue.
So down there at Stinky Point.
Stinky Point. There's a good reason why it might be called Stinky Point, and we'll get to that.
I was going to say, is it industrial, environmental? And
It's like a dump spot
okay.
for people's old debris,
Okay.
appliances.
See, I like when names of locations make sense. People go down there and they hang out, and they keep talking about how it stinks. And at some point, someone's like, you should just call it Stinky Point. Why does that make me not want to go there and hang out?
It's a very colorful nickname, right? It's a colorful area.
And just to know, be like, what's your job? I'm in sand and gravel. That's my profession. It's just a basic laborer.
Well, Charlie Newcomb had been searching the area for old rags to use at work when he moved a box and saw a hand. Moments later, he moved another box, finding a leg. He said, quote, "At first, I thought it was a dummy hand."
A mannequin.
And we've heard that multiple times when people stumble upon a deceased body. It's like your brain doesn't want to believe this is a real person. You automatically want to think it's a mannequin or some kind of doll.
Yeah. It's not real. That's not really a body you're looking at. I mean, I seriously think, even if you obviously know and can see that it's, human remains. And I think that's why people always say that, because I don't think your brain wants to register the fact that that's another dead human being.
No. I think it goes against every fiber of our being.
I think it does,
because
truly.
it's like mortality right there,
Yeah.
Newcomb immediately contacted law enforcement to report the dead woman, taking care not to touch anything. Authorities remembered the missing persons report filed on Joanna Gail Huffstetler, and when they arrived upon the scene, Dylan, the body seemed to match her description. Homicide Captain Charles Lobetti knew quickly that violence was involved in Joanna's death. At the scene, a wound, probably a blow, was found on her head just behind Joanna's right ear. Law enforcement contacted May Huffstetler at her laundry dry cleaning plant job. She worked in an office at a dry cleaning plant, to inform the woman of Joanna's death. May was not filled in on the details of her daughter's death at the time, but she had previously expressed concerns to law enforcement that she believed her daughter was dead. I mean, call it a mother's instinct, but we hear of this in a lot of missing persons cases. It seems like mothers know when their child is no longer alive.
Yeah, even if and I think it's all they're on the same frequency. You know, a lot of times I'll think about my mom and then she'll call me and say, "Hey, I was just thinking about you." I mean, that happens all the time. But yeah, you always trust a mother's intuition.
Well, this has to be one of the worst bits of news received by parents, that we've found your child and they are deceased, much less you find out that your child's been murdered.
To this day, I don't know how you live with that news.
Despite the missing persons report, law enforcement had been slow to investigate the girl's disappearance after learning that Joanna had frequented dance halls around Knoxville for the past 2 years. Law enforcement officials said they believed a girl like Joanna could take care of herself.
What does that mean?
Well, again, it's one of those almost victim-blamey statements.
Will she have a black belt or something?
Well, I guess they figure here's this girl running around beer joints and dance halls, so she must be kind of, I guess, a tough girl on her own. But still,
it's funny.
Again, it's almost victim blamey.
Yeah.
We hear this time and time again where law enforcement does not take a missing persons case seriously because of that person's background, whether it's a drug situation or whatever. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine. You're exactly saying basically what I was thinking, but it's funny, you know, and I kind of...
She's a 17-year-old kid.
I don't agree with it, but I almost understand people's hesitation when it's drug use, because they'd be like, oh, they were whacked out of their mind. You know, what did they, you know, as far as witness testimony, what did they really see? What is the truth? Can we trust them? I don't agree with it, but I kind of understand. But for a woman, all she's got to do is be breathing to be wrote off as a second-hand citizen. You know what I'm saying? Oh, well, she put a skirt on and went to the bar? Oh, my God, you know. I mean, it's that chauvinistic, patriarchal, whatever bullshit that to this day is just now kind of being addressed, but it still exists.
Well, it almost sounds like an attitude of she gets what she deserves
because
she is out running around at beer joints and dance halls.
Yeah.
And if she's been doing this for 2 years, then that means Joanna's been going out to these places since she was 15 years old.
Wow.
And she's only 17. And I know that meant something different, like back in the day, you know, people were viewed, I guess, maybe as more mature or adult-like.
Well, just watch an 80s movie. Everybody looks like they're 45 and they're supposed to be, you know, I mean, I know they're older actors, but just kids in general looked older, acted a bit more mature than we do nowadays.
Well, yeah, I mean, at 18, a lot of people were getting married,
jobs,
starting families, starting careers. But, you know, you have to keep in mind, I mean, she's only 17 years old. So this attitude that law enforcement has in the
beginning, she can take care of herself,
is quite disgusting, in my opinion. It's very disheartening. Well, it didn't take long for law enforcement to focus in on the last person seen with Joanna when she was alive, Sprout Young. Joanna had been a senior at Everett High School and had missed Tuesday through Friday of the last week. So if she's going out on Saturday night, well, she had missed that whole week of school, basically.
Okay.
Right? And then when she's gone missing, she's absent for another week. May Huffstetler was able to identify her daughter's clothing as the ones she had been wearing on Saturday before she had disappeared. Margaret Douglas told law enforcement it had been customary for her to pick up Joanna at home in Maryville on Saturday afternoons so the pair could go dancing on Saturday nights. Joanna always spent the night at Douglas's apartment afterwards. Margaret told police that they were all good girls who only danced with men they knew. Yet Margaret said Joanna was led out onto the dance floor, by a man that she called Frank.
She was dancing with
She
strangers.
did not know him as Sprout. Joanna knew him as Frank.
Frank's got all kinds of names.
Frank has some aliases. So according to Joanna, she had met Frank once a year earlier, but had not seen him since. But it turns out, Dylan, that Frank is Sprout Young.
A.K.A. Rattlesnake Daddy.
He's got a lot of names.
Can I just make you call me something like that? Yeah, I mean, we're still, I'm still the unit, obviously. Specimen, a specimen, the specimen, I think you prefer, actually. What else?
Thorn, because you're a thorn in my side most days.
You know, Thorn's kind of badass nickname, bro, because I'm prickly, because I'm a prick. That's what I would lead with if my nickname was Thorn.
Okay.
I'll make you bleed. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to leave minor scratches on your arm.
We could also
I'm like a thorn,
We could
bud.
call you the Snack Daddy.
Ooh, I like that one.
Yeah, since
I'll
you
snack that out.
ate like a whole box of ice creams and didn't share.
Do you want to address that in public? Look, we got... I don't know what was happening, Heather. I think I was replacing alcohol with food at that point.
You ate all the snacks.
We got some blue... if you've never had them, I know this might be a regional thing. Blue Bunny brand little mini cones. They're like Nutty Buddies, but they're mini. Oh my gosh. And they were so good. They were one was chocolate, but it was a buy one, get one. Okay. So we got the chocolate and the caramel swirl.
So you're telling me you had 2 boxes?
There was, oh gosh, I left that out.
You ate 2
No,
boxes?
I think my mom ate 1 or 2 of them. But this was over the course of some, I know.
This was over the course of like a day and a half.
No, it was at least 2 and a half
Dude, that's
days.
a lie.
No, but look, in my defense, they were tiny. I would say.
I asked for one. I was like, you know what? I think I'll have one of those. And you were like, oh, yeah, there are none left. So you ate like 16 ice cream cones.
Whoa.
Oh, Dylan.
I would say it takes 3 of those to make a proper one.
That is not true at all.
That's true.
You are such a liar.
God, I'm such a fat ass.
You are.
Yeah.
I am so
disappointed in me.
in your
See?
choices.
was
Because not
poor.
only did you eat all the, and I'm not even bitching about the ice cream,
Oh my
but
God.
you ate all the other snacks that we had purchased.
Maybe.
You had eaten because I was like, we don't have anything that's kind of sweet. And you were
No.
like, no, you ate it all.
I also ate some gummies earlier in the evening. I think that's
You're
what
such
made
a
it.
little piggy.
Oh gosh, I was a dirty little pig.
You are a little pig.
Won't you wash me down?
You need to go root around in the mud, you little pig.
Only if there is a Blue Bunny mini cone down in that mud, I'm going to
I
find
was
it.
disappointed.
I'm like a truffle sniffing
I'm
pig.
going to have to hide my snacks from you.
Oh my
and I'm not
gosh.
even snacking that much. So the one thing that I asked you for, and you ate it all. 2 boxes of it.
Yeah.
You should be ashamed.
Oh, I was.
You should feel shame.
Once the truth came out.
I think our patrons should shame you. I think everyone should shame you.
Don't food shame me, folks. I'm working on stuff here.
Yeah, you're working on 2 boxes of like mini cones.
Hey, look, I knew it was wrong. I feel like it was a bit much. I won't do
and
it
you
again.
ate my Cadbury cream egg.
Look, now you're just living in the past. And you can't, if you don't let go of the past, you can never move into the future.
I bought 1 Cadbury cream egg, my favorite candy. I wait all year for a Cadbury cream egg, and then you ate it. You ate my cream egg. You didn't even ask permission.
Back to the story.
Such a shit.
I feel bad about it, though I do.
Margaret had seen Joanna drive off in a black and yellow Chevrolet sedan, which was driven by this Frank person, a.k.a. Sprout Young. Joanna had been wearing a fur coat and carrying a handbag, which were not located at the crime scene. A black high heel shoe was found in brush near the street by law enforcement. The heels indicated drag marks as if someone had pulled Joanna's body uphill from a car. She had bruised knuckles, which law enforcement believed were defensive wounds fighting off her attacker. A check was made of men who resembled Margaret's description, and they kind of took this description and, put it up against men who had been arrested on charges of rape, assault, and other violent offenses.
Okay.
So they're like, okay, we know he's about this tall. He's got, kind of blonde hair. And so then they're kind of matching that against men who'd been arrested for this type of crime. Detectives went around to bars and taverns across Knoxville, describing Frank to owners and bartenders. A tavern owner on Clinton Avenue told law enforcement, quote, "You could be describing one of my best customers, only his name isn't Frank, it's Leroy Young."
Damn it. Leroy, too?
Well, that's his first name.
Man, this guy, you know, anybody that is known by all these different terms, they're usually up to no good.
We got Leroy, Frank, Sprout, Rattlesnake Daddy. Yeah. He's got quite a few names. Different personalities, Dylan.
Yeah.
The police didn't need to consult their records on Leroy Young, as most had known him for years. He had a lengthy criminal record and had only been released from prison since November of 1954. Sprout was an orphan juvenile delinquent who had been in trouble since the age of 7. That's when he had his first run-in with law enforcement.
My God, what are you doing as a 7-year-old to get the cops called?
Stealing.
Damn it.
At 15, he was caught burglarizing homes and sent to a state reform school in Nashville, Tennessee. He also served time in state reform schools or, boys' schools.
Work camps.
In Florida and Kentucky during his teenage years. By the time he was 18, Sprout joined the U.S. Army. However, he was quickly considered a deserter after taking off without permission. He was arrested in November of 1941 on charges of being a deserter, of having gone AWOL. But when the United States entered into World War II, Sprout was sent to fight because they just needed some bodies, Dylan.
They just wanted some warm bodies, folks.
But while serving during World War II, Sprout was awarded a Bronze Star for gallantry and given a Purple Heart for being wounded in action. By all accounts, once he got past the being a deserter thing, he seemed to do really well in the Army. The structure was good for him.
So he settled in.
He had a mission.
He was a proper soldier after that.
Yes.
And it sounds gallant and brave to a certain degree.
Yet the military did little to get Young's life on track, even if it seemed like maybe he was doing well. Once he was discharged, he continued his shenanigans and found himself serving a sentence in Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary for car theft when he was 21.
Hey, I've been there.
You have been there.
That's a really creepy old prison.
Well, Brushy Mountain is no joke, Dylan. It was the state's first maximum security prison, which held Tennessee's most violent murderers, robbers, and rapists for over a century. See, before this, unpaid convicts were leased to coal mines to work until coal miners protested, and this resulted in the Coal Creek War back in 1891.
So essentially, you had the company forcing regular employees to work side by side with convicted murderers, rapists, pedophiles, whatever.
Yes.
And they were getting free labor from these convicts.
Which took jobs away from
right.
regular working folks.
And you're also, I would say, creating a hostile working environment. Now I got this pissed off, convict that doesn't probably want to do this dangerous, because coal mining's not easy. They're being forced to do this incredibly hard, dangerous labor for free. So I can imagine their attitudes are the best in the world. So yeah, I would complain as an employee as well.
After the convict release arrangements were changed in 1896, 200 inmates became the first to inhabit the secure mountainous prison. Due to the rugged wilderness and terrain, escapes were rare and never successful. James Earl Ray, who assassinated Martin Luther King Jr., was one of the most notable inmates at the prison. He escaped, made it 8.5 miles away, and basically just turned around and came back.
He came back because he had no food, no shelter.
Up.
Yeah, and I got to say, even today, it's still fairly rural and country around this place. As you approach it, you start leaving Knoxville behind.
Mountainous terrain, for sure.
There's not a lot of houses out there, even in the modern day, so I could only imagine back then it was even more desolate.
Two-lane, windy road that takes you back there.
Yeah, and the prison's kind of nestled up in a little valley right below, some very
at the
heavily
base of a mountain.
Yeah, very heavily wooded mountains with no paths, no roads, but in and out of.
And this place was rough. It was a scary place, not where you want to end up.
No.
3 years after his release, Young attempted to steal a car from behind a doctor's office. Dr. Paul Cardwell, a Knoxville physician, caught Sprout Young attempting to steal his car.
Hey, that's my car.
Sprout Young shot the doctor, then went on the run for several days until he was arrested. Young's arrest came after shooting 2 brothers in a tavern fight. So not only does he attempt to steal a car, shoot a physician, he's not sure if the guy is dead or alive, runs off, he's on the lam, and then he shoots 2 brothers at a tavern.
And back then, you shoot the doctor in town and kill him, you've really affected that town. Not saying that, murder is always bad and everybody matters, but it's not like there's 50 other doctors. That could literally be the only doctor in the entire area.
Well, I'm sure being Knoxville, there were more, but it was a big deal. So Sprout was arrested in the attic of a Maryland Avenue home. Armed with a fully loaded .45 caliber revolver, Sprout surrendered to officers without a fight. He was actually found at the home of a man named Barney Earl, who was victim of the Kangaroo Court killing in Knox County Jail a few years earlier. It's wild. When I was researching Sprout's story, there are all these other criminals kind of that he knows or that are like peripherally around that he's got a connection to.
Oh, yeah. You said you kept running across other cases that you could do.
And we'll talk about some of these as we go.
And it really, I love it when that happens. You're doing this case, an interesting case, and you find all these little tendrils that connect out to other big events or other, very famous murders, things like that.
Sprout confessed he'd gone to Dr. Cardwell's garage in the rear of the office to steal the car, and that he shot the physician when a struggle ensued. He did not reveal why he had shot Leroy and Lloyd Reno at the Brown Spot Cafe. Now, during the confession, Sprout also admitted to stealing 3 automobiles, various license plates, that he had broken into a home in Virginia and robbed a man named J.W. Clabaugh at his store in Wildwood, taking $1,250 in cash and checks. So, a crime spree.
Yeah. Yeah, I like when the people are like, well, I was just there to steal stuff. And then they come out and started fighting me, and there was a struggle, and a gun went off accidentally.
But law enforcement had no idea he'd been on this crime spree. So once they get him talking, he's just confessing to all of these things, right? A fingerprint lifted from Dr. Cardwell's steering wheel belonged to Sprout Young. A tip from a child in the area led officers to finding Young hiding in Earl's attic. A man named John Wesley Bowman had been an accomplice in the car theft at Dr. Cardwell's office. The crime wave started on May 13th, Young told police, when along with Bowman, a man named Kenneth Adair, and another man, that they had stolen a car to drive to Atlanta, then Washington, D.C. In a small Virginia town, the men broke into a home where they stole 2 shotguns. In Washington, D.C., they planned to sell the stolen car for only $20, but the buyer had demanded a clear title, so they realized they could not sell or fence the stolen car.
So they just shot him. No, they didn't.
No, they didn't.
But they were thinking about it.
Lloyd Reno, age 25, was the most seriously wounded of the brothers shot at the Brown Spot Cafe. Which, by the way, a Brown Spot Cafe, that sounds like it could be a cancerous cafe, a freckle. I don't know if I'd want to eat at a place called the Brown Spot.
It just doesn't seem like good branding to me.
No, not really.
It's like, come on up to Stinky Point and eat at the lovely Brown Spot Cafe.
Yeah, exactly.
We have outdoor seating.
Great.
There's a mattress with the mysterious stains on it over in the corner.
You want to try these green eggs and ham.
Yes, they're literally green eggs and green ham.
Yes. So Lloyd Reno was shot 4 times. 1 bullet grazed his head, another his left rib. A third entered his left hip, and the 4th bullet his left leg. His brother was hit in the left arm by the 6th bullet from Young's pistol.
Damn, he unloaded on him,
so
didn't
it
he?
sounds like the 5th bullet just kind of ended up someplace else.
Oh, it's that JFK bullet. It's magic.
The brothers had known Leroy Young for years, as he had been their neighbor on Orange Street. The Reno brothers told newspaper reporters they did not know why Sprout Young had shot them. Young was sitting in the restaurant when the brothers entered. Now, it's been described as a restaurant, and it's also been described as a tavern. When they were inside, Young opened fire on Lloyd Reno, then shot his brother. A witness said the shooting occurred after Sprout Young threw a beer bottle at the men. It was learned that Sprout had stolen the pistol from his stepfather, P.R. Williams, who resided on Orange Street. Williams had taken a pistol theft warrant out only a day before Dr. Cardwell was shot with it. Sprout pled guilty in criminal court to the charges and was given 12 to 63 years in prison.
That's a big window.
But he was released in 1954. After his release from prison, Sprout worked as a roofer, a truck driver, and then a merchant marine. While in the Merchant Marines, Sprout spent time living in New Orleans. He mostly worked on the Great Lakes, but spent winters in Knoxville when the lake's shipping lanes became impassable due to ice. On January 12th of 1959, Sprout Young married Wilma Jean Mundy after a short courtship, and Wilma Jean is his fourth wife.
Yeah, I can't imagine why it's just not working out between Sprout and his previous 3 wives. I don't get it. He's trying hard as he can,
He
folks.
probably ate all the ice cream.
He didn't eat all the mini cones, did he?
He did.
That son of a bitch. I mean, between all the murdering and the, assault with deadly weapons.
Well, he hasn't murdered anyone yet
Well, and the
that we know of.
and the stealings. At least, just don't eat the ice cream cones. I mean, that's a step too far.
A few weeks before the murder, Wilma had gotten her husband hired on at a textile mill where she was employed. The couple worked different shifts, with Sprout being on nights. Saturday, the evening that Joanna was killed, Sprout was let go early by his supervisor. So he was kind of like given the evening off, right? His wife recalled that Sprout showered, changed clothes, and left for the night, not telling him where she was going, because he liked to go, what my papa used to call catting around town.
Catting around town, or tomcatting.
Catting around.
And you're up to no good when you're doing that. And it usually involves another female.
Catting around, leaving his wife at home.
I would never do that.
You wouldn't?
No.
And I can't get you to leave
Well, because I want to be with you.
Because I'm like, why don't you go somewhere?
I'm afraid that you get the ice cream cones.
It's true.
I just want to stay here and like keep fucking up the small things, And I think that's really,
To keep me on my toes?
yeah, it's the spice of life. It's like little things like, hey, I think I had some chips left. Oh, no, he found those and ate them. Hey, I had half that really nice sandwich I had at lunch. Oh, my God, he ate that too. It's a pattern's developing here.
Oh, there's quite a few patterns that have developed with you over the years.
Yeah, don't step on snake. But see, this is why you keep me here, because I might eat all your shit and fucking ruin late night munchies, but I make you smile.
And you frustrate me.
Yeah, but you can't. Smiling doesn't feel as good if you've never been frustrated. It's kind of like when winning and losing in T-ball.
It's true.
Yeah, victory means shit if you've never been a loser.
On the following Sunday night, so, he's out and about Saturday. He's with Joanna. She's gone missing. Then it's Sunday night. He resumes working at the mill. At some point during this Sunday night, a foreman catches Sprout sleeping on the job, and he is instantly fired.
Damn, they were not playing. They had a no tolerance policy.
And he's only worked there 3 weeks.
Damn it,
After
Sprout.
his wife gets him a job there, which I'm sure, that's going to make her look great.
Well, yeah, your husband didn't work at all. He's just a waste of everybody's time of training and all that. And he didn't even make it a month.
No. Speaking with Sprout's parole officer, LaBetty was informed that Leroy's real name was not Frank. It was an alias he used sometimes. The parole officer doubted Sprout's involvement in Joanna's murder, saying, quote, "He's never been in any sex trouble. He's crazy about cars and hillbilly songs. And he seems to be making good adjustments on parole, mostly thanks to his fourth wife." The parole officer added that Sprout had a way with women. LaBetty told the New York Daily News, quote, "With 4 wives, he'd have to be good with women," right?
That's a really great point.
Margaret Douglas identified Leroy Young by photographs, saying that was the man she had seen with Joanna. An All Points bulletin is released. They are looking for Sprout everywhere. Then, Sprout's car was found abandoned in the parking lot of an auto finance company in Knoxville. His friend John Baker told law enforcement that Sprout had shown up at his house on Monday asking if Baker would return the car and the keys to the auto company. Sprout explained he had a quarrel with his wife and was leaving town to find work.
I got in a fight with my wife, so I'm going to leave and go get a job elsewhere.
Sprout Young left on a westbound bus. As the murder charge was drawn up, the Knoxville authorities contacted the FBI for assistance. Photographs of Sprout Young were sent out on the wire, Dylan. Young was arrested in Los Angeles on January 25th of 1960 in the downtown area, which is also like kind of the Skid Row area. He was charged with first-degree murder, along with a federal charge of unlawful flight.
Hey, we didn't give you permission to run, bud.
After Young's extradition back to Knoxville for the murder of Joanna Huffstetler, 9 women who refused to give their names saw his photograph in the newspaper. These 9 women reported that Young had sexually assaulted them in the past few months, but they had not reported the rapes to police. So possibly a serial rapist. Let's add that to the list of shitbird activities, Dylan.
Yeah, you can't even blame the victims, which you should never, honestly. If you're really a victim, then it's your thing. I don't get to decide how or any of it works or how you feel about it or none of that. It's your business. But back then, I mean, it happens still today. They could be just, oh, well, did you have panties on? I mean, these would be the time. Well, you ain't have no panties on? Well, you was asking to be raped.
Well, we
Let's
see
be
how
honest.
they treated victim Joanna when she's missing. They don't even bother to look for her. And we've heard this before. We know how, even today, victims of rape and sexual assault are treated terribly.
When our daughters come home from school and saying that they cannot wear a shirt that exposes their shoulders because it distracts the poor young men, they can't do their work. That statement, the time your daughter, my stepdaughter, told you that was so fucking disgusting to me. It made me want to fight her and it just told me the sentiment that is in place. Well, even though that might be a very PG version of it, it's the same fucking thing.
No, it is.
And it's disgusting. It's like, how about you teach your boys, won't you teach them a little bit about respect for fellow man,
willpower,
and humanity,
self-control,
and it's a fucking shoulder, bro. Calm down.
Well, the way they would berate these female students in front of the boys,
they talk crazy.
They would berate these girls, call them out. I mean,
and you know what?
It's disgusting.
You're screwing it up for the other young men in the class who happen to like to see bare shoulders, and they ain't said a word because they're respectful.
Okay, Dylan. You stop.
I just remember being a young man. They fuck it up for the rest of us. It's like the one bad apple.
Sprout Young would be the first man convicted of a sexual slaying in over 27 years. The last rape and murder had been in 1933 when 24-year-old Carrie Allen, an S&W cafeteria cashier, was robbed, raped, and murdered by 24-year-old Louis Fain. Fain died in the electric chair. So trying Sprout on these charges of rape and murder was like it was a big thing in Knoxville because they had not had a trial like this in a long time.
Right. And that's a place with, it's not exactly a small town. I mean, it's always, been a growing area, lot of populace.
The autopsy results did show that Joanna had been sexually assaulted before the murder.
Oh my God.
Sprout admitted that he had known Joanna Huffstetler and the pair had been sexually intimate on various occasions. But can you believe him?
No, you can't believe a word he says, and you can't believe his version of what he did to this poor woman.
I apologize. Rufus is barking in the background, so you can probably hear that, guys. Sorry about that. He claimed after eating at the Blue Circle Cafe, Joanna had wanted to return home to Maryville. Young had driven her home in his Chevrolet, but the couple had engaged in sex beforehand. Now, he's claiming this was consensual sex.
Before he drove her home?
Yes.
Okay.
But here we have 9 other women saying, nope, he's a rapist, he sexually assaulted us, and the coroner saying that it looks like it was a rape. That Joanna,
Right.
the autopsy, that it looks like she's been assaulted. Sprout claimed after they had their burgers and fries at the Blue Circle Cafe that he had driven Joanna home to Maryville.
Marvel.
Sprout had driven her home in his Chevrolet, but the couple had engaged in sex beforehand, as I mentioned. When they arrived at her home, Joanna explained she was failing her high school classes and had excessive absences. She hated school, and the only way she would be able to drop out is if she got married. Joanna asked Young to marry her. She also asked what he would do if she became pregnant, which Young responded, quote, you ought to have thought about that. Because, it's all her responsibility.
That's, yeah. I would never trust alleged rapist, a known rapist account of his interaction with a female.
Well, when asking about the marriage, Sprout informed Joanna that he was already married. With this information, Joanna flew into a rage and began slapping and scratching Sprout Young. He claims during the struggle, he shoved Joanna and she hit her head on the passenger car door. Her head was bloody, and he said this was around 2:30 a.m. Joanna stormed out of the car. Sprout drove away, assuming that Joanna was going inside her mother's home. Sprout admitted once in 1958, when he had first met Joanna, that he had mentioned marriage to her, but he had not told her that he had remarried in 1959.
So he would be committing bigamy if he were to marry again.
Yes. And of course, he's not out telling these women.
By the way, I'm married.
He's a barroom Lothario, Dylan. He's a redneck Romeo. He is not out telling anybody he's married, because that is going to ruin his chances of hooking up.
Yeah, but like, who really is not a good wingman? My wife.
She's a real cock block.
It's like she doesn't want me to have sex with other people.
I've told you that before, that, man, getting married, my husband's a real cock block.
Oh.
Please, thank you. I enjoy it.
We got duck on tap now.
You know what? I joke, I say that, but I'm a repel man.
Yeah.
I do. I just give them a look and they're like, ugh. They do not approach.
The hissing helps.
You think it's a hissing?
Yeah.
Okay. The switchblade comb?
Yeah.
They don't know it's a comb until I get it out and flip it and start doing my hair. They scanter away.
Gosh, thank you, Kat, for my switchblade comb. She heard me say I had a switchblade comb one time as a little kid, and she is so sweet, and she brought me a little switchblade comb.
Shout out to Kat.
Thank you, Kat. We love you and your husband.
Now, according to Young, he was in the practice of taking a lot of women home from the dance halls of Knoxville, often having sex with them in the car.
Now,
if the Chevy's a knocking or rocking, rocking and a knocking,
you know the thing.
Sprout's a cocking.
No, I gotta ask.
Just kidding. You like I just made that up.
I couldn't tell.
Okay.
Have you ever had an enjoyable sexual experience in a car?
No.
No, I'm saying you do it and be like, well, we did it in the car. But honestly, I want to hear our listeners' thoughts.
Do adults really be doing it in the car?
Well, I'm saying, but even as a young person, I didn't, I was a late bloomer, if you will. But has anyone ever had great sex in a car?
You're telling me that when you lost your virginity at age 30.
I looked for it. I couldn't find it.
You lost it. You weren't doing it in a car?
I'm a 30-year-old virgin. I was.
In the car?
No, I wasn't that late. But
you were trying to get somebody in the front seat of your Buick?
No, but I'm honestly, it's you do it, but is it ever good or comfortable? Because I just don't see it. I don't see it.
Maybe if you're an exhibitionist.
Or maybe if you're in like a big-ass vehicle. Because, it's just a lot going on. Which, my awkwardness anywhere besides.
You need one of those, like, really rad Dodge, like, vans from the 70s.
With shag carpet.
This is my dream.
And one of those round windows in the back.
And I'm going to get, like, a Wizard or, like, a Grim Reaper and a Wizard airbrushed on the side.
Right.
Now, that's a car that you can fuck in.
Well, yeah, but that's a shag wagon is what you're describing.
Yeah.
And it's got a full-on bed in the back. Now, that's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my dream.
That's right.
Not for the sex purposes.
She just wants the van.
That'd be a badass van.
God, I want like a heart window or a round window in the back.
Yeah.
With a full-on Wizard. I'm sticking with the Wizard airbrushing. And the van's like purple. Like a deep bright, almost a bright
Yeah.
purple. And then the wizard scenes on there with lots of blues
Man, I would
and
get
yellows.
some like gold rims on my tires if I had a van
Oh
like
my
that.
gosh. So if you have a cool ass vintage wizard van that you would like to give to me and Heather, hit us up at mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com.
We are currently accepting donations of wizard vans.
And-
Absolutely.
Yeah, and driveway parking.
Or a Grim Reaper van.
Or any of that. Or I'll even take the old school, like the chick, like the naked chick, the very strong, very full of attitude naked
I'm just
chick.
saying, okay? No, maybe some judgment. You meet a guy. I mean, he's 37 years old.
Okay.
You're at a bar and you meet an adult person, right? And you're feeling it. They're feeling it. You're kind of like, okay.
Take me out to your car.
They take you to their car.
Instead
they
of
can't
somewhere.
Take you to their home
Oh yeah.
or back to your place.
Or to a hotel room, even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems.
I got bucket seats.
That seems a little. That seems a little trashy, Dylan.
It seems like you're doing it and you don't want nobody to know you're doing it. That's what I would think.
Right. So both of y'all are married. One of you is married, right?
Well, not long ago, we talked about a story. They would meet in a parking lot and like have sex because they're like cheating on each other, each other's spouses and stuff. And that's kind of, I don't know. It's kind of gross. I mean, seriously, I think it is.
Can't you get a room at the Dewdrop Inn?
I done dropped in.
At the Night's Inn or the Roadway Inn?
Oh,
one
these
of
are
those
some-
like $30 a night rooms.
These are classic places that you're naming off here.
You can get laid and get some bed bugs.
That's one of the reasons they're ripping the heart of Haywood County out is they've gotten rid of the lot lizard hotels.
You mean the one that used to be by the
Yes.
truck stop?
Yeah. And there was another little gym of a hotel. It was literally named the Gym Hotel. It was so kind of gross looking. And you'd always see like, traveling, working construction guys, stay somewhere cheap, easy to get the rooms. But it certainly had a reputation for being able to find
All sorts of things.
a person engaging in the oldest,
I will just
profession.
say that
No.
the truck stop motel and the one you were speaking of, they were just like, is a den of vices.
Yes.
Any vice you had,
Yeah.
you would be able to find it and fulfill it there.
And I think counties and places need those places.
You need a seedy
hotel.
motel, yeah.
Hotel, motel,
Dude, it's a
holiday
motel.
Inn.
It ain't a hotel.
Wait, I've never understood.
But now, when the hoes are there, it could be a hotel, but it's really a motel.
No, so is a motel is cheaper?
The
and-
motel is like the motor lodge where you park in front of the room
Mhm.
kind of thing.
Mhm.
And the hotel is where like the parking is not in the front.
Oh, and you like go inside?
Yes.
Oh, I like that. I like the motel. I like to park right in front of my door, bud. I want to see my car and shit. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Nobody's messing around with it. It's easy to get your stuff in.
Well, the fact that you're staying in a place you have to worry about someone messing with your
Well, look,
stuff
people-
speaks volumes.
Look,
Dylan.
hey, crime doesn't see affluence, okay? Crime happens everywhere. I think we should know that by now after 6 years of mountain murdering.
Okay. Back to our story, Dylan. So none of these women knew that Sproul was married, and rarely did he give them his real name because he often went by the name Frank. So if you're out catting around,
You got to have an alias.
instead of being Dylan, you should like start telling people your name is like Kevin
Kevin's a good one.
or Shane,
Shane.
Mike.
I'd be like, after a night out with me, you might add a M in that name. Shame.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you gotta get yourself an alias.
I
Dylan.
think I'm going to go with Eduardo.
Nice.
Yeah, you like that?
I like Eduardo.
Or I could
yes.
just use Delano. That was my Spanish name, as our Discord family
Oh,
well
yeah.
know. Yeah,
Delano.
that's my Spanish name in school.
A university hospital pathologist ruled that Joanna had died from asphyxiation due to obstruction of respiratory tract. The injury was indicative of violence, he stated. In Joanna's windpipe, there was considerable mucus and vomit, which he said could be consistent with head trauma. Like, since she did have the wound on her head, that if she was, hit in the head or fell and hit her head, whatever, that could cause this nausea, that kind of thing.
But I gotta imagine if you just shoved someone, right? And this does happen. You get in some kind of a tussle when you shove them. You're not meaning to cause them great harm, and they whack their head. That's not going to be just I bumped my head kind of minute.
Right.
You're going to literally hear the, I would think, skull crack kind of thing. And I've always heard if you have a shot to the head in sports, and stuff like that.
Concussion.
Yeah, that you can start vomiting, and that's not a good sign. That
No.
means you've had intense head trauma, if you will. So that all adds up. But his version of, we got in a argument, and I shoved her. She whacked her head over the door. And then she.
But it almost sounds like there has been some maybe choking involved
Yes.
as well, strangulation.
I don't believe his story at all. I mean, honestly, I don't think anyone does.
When Sprout had shown up at his apartment after the murder with scratches on his face, he had told his wife Wilma that it had been from a drunk that he'd given a ride home to, and that this drunk had gotten rough with him. Like, I just offered him a ride home, and he was drunk and attacked me.
And he had these beautiful long fingernails that were painted, and he just started scratching me.
Maybe he likes to get a mani and a pedi. You don't know.
Mm.
On Monday, after the murder, Young had visited an insurance agent to cancel his car's policy. He had told this agent that the car had been wrecked and it was a total loss, and that he no longer wanted to pay the policy. When the agent asked about the scratches on his face, Sprout Young said he'd gotten these in the car accident.
So he's telling a different story.
He would offer up 5 different excuses to various individuals regarding the scratches. He had cut himself shaving. That's what he told police. He had
multiple scratches all down your face.
Yes, that his wife had scratched him in a fight. That's what he told a few friends. That a drunk had scratched him. He had had this car accident, and that he had also been engaged in a barroom fight.
Oh.
So various stories, Dylan.
Damn.
Inside Sprout's car, investigators found heavy blood stains with hair, which were sent to the FBI lab in Washington, D.C. The hair matched Joanna Huffstetler's, along with the blood type. The coroner estimated Joanna was killed elsewhere, likely inside the car, then dumped near this site on Front Avenue at Stinky Point.
I can smell it.
I just can't get over the name of Stinky Point.
No, it's great. It's great. It's great.
A homemaker who lived in the area of Stinky Point told investigators that on Monday, her children had rolled 2 old tires down the embankment, like the ones that were found on top of Joanna. So the defense is going to use this woman's statement as proof that Young didn't kill Joanna, that her body was not dumped on Saturday night or Sunday morning, that it had to be dumped after Monday because that's when these 2 tires were placed. So someone else killed her and then put the tires on her after they had appeared on Monday. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, I see. They're using the fact that a witness claims her sons threw these 2 particular recognizable tires, obviously, in the dump spot at a certain point.
On Monday.
So the defense is using that to kind of dispute the timeline and the events laid out by the prosecution.
Right.
Okay. That's
Another-
pretty smart on the defense's part, honestly.
Well, another witness named Edward Jackson, also known as Bogey Jackson.
Of course he is.
He was an ice cream truck driver. He told investigators that he had gone fishing in the same area of Stinky Point on Sunday. He had been looking for fishing worms in the place where Joanna's body was discovered, and he didn't see Joanna's body despite removing 2 tires from the debris pile, which he burned for warmth while fishing in the river.
Oh my God. What the freaking hell? Did these people know anything about the environment? I'm going to set a couple of tires on.
Look, Dylan,
one of the worst
would
things.
use cars for erosion purposes.
That's smart, actually. It's just metal. And that's actually a good.
Yeah, all the oil, everything from the.
I'm
the
sure
battery.
they did.
That's amazing, Dylan. We should definitely put that in the river.
Well, I was going to say they didn't take the fluids out
Because
or the batteries.
Back in the day, propped them all along riverbanks.
It's true. And I'm sure they didn't fluid the car, none of that.
Oh, come on. You know they didn't.
No, but
all that rust in the river, the paint. Come on.
If you're cold, just set that tire on fire and have this big plume of toxic black smoke. Some of the worst smoke you'll ever see or come across in your life. How do you even sit near that fire?
Well, during the trial, the prosecution will point out that Edward Jackson, a.k.a. Bogey Jackson, was a felon dating back to the mid-1940s. He had been convicted of burglary and theft. So I was wondering if it was possible that Bogey Jackson had known Sprout Young or knew of him because they probably ran in the same criminal circles.
Oh, it could be covering for him.
Perhaps. Despite this information, Knox County Attorney General Blackburn felt confident. He had 30 of 150 witnesses interviewed and decided that these 30 would be testifying against Young at trial. Blackburn would be trying this as his second major murder case since taking office in 1958. His first case as a prosecutor was against a man named Clifford Eugene Scalf, who was accused of killing his estranged wife. Her daughter discovered Pauline Scalf's body in an apartment on North Fifth Avenue. The woman had been beaten, her throat slashed. Scalf showed up at the apartment soon after the body was discovered in an attempt to drop off some dry cleaning. During his interrogation, police caught Scalf in several lies. Scalf had visible scratches on his neck with no good explanation on how he had gotten them. His alibi was that he had spent the night at his father's house on the evening that Pauline was murdered, but his father could not provide a good alibi. He could not remember the time that his son had returned home. So there was a big window of time that he could have killed his wife. Mrs. Scalf was also employed at Standard Knitting Mills, where Sprout Young worked before Joanna's murder. The case against Scalf ended in a mistrial, and Blackburn didn't pursue a second trial. No one has been charged in Pauline's murder. Her billfold, which held like several $20 bills, was never located, and neither was the murder weapon. So this prosecutor, this is the first big trial that he's had as the district attorney, basically, and it ends in a mistrial. So now he's got Sprout's case coming up, and it'll only be like the second murder trial he's going to try to prosecute.
So I got to imagine he's feeling quite a bit of pressure on this second case.
Yes.
To win.
Absolutely. Strangely enough, 3 women who worked at Standard Knitting Mills were murdered. On March 31st of 1951, Mary Hankins was found shot in her Fountain City home by husband Fred. Neighbors reported a tall, slim man in a blue suit who was seen walking from Mary's home about an hour or a half hour before the dying woman was found. And we covered Mary Hankins' case years ago on Patreon.
I was going to say that when you said the man in the blue suit was seen leave, I was like, I think I remember that. Yeah.
We covered that on Patreon so many years ago, Dylan. On May 27th of 1951, 29-year-old Helen Stewart and her 6-year-old son were found in the Gulf Surf in Henderson Point, Mississippi. Their bodies had been battered. Stewart was pregnant at the time of her murder, and this case remains unsolved. 2 weeks before the murders, Helen Stewart had taken her young son Howard on a trip to Chattanooga to, quote, see the mountains, and they went missing. She sent a letter to family postmarked from Birmingham, Alabama, saying she was despondent, and next time they heard about her, she might be dead. It is reported that Helen Stewart had only packed a small suitcase with her son's clothing when they boarded the bus from Knoxville. Helen Stewart had been estranged from her husband, the boy's father, since before the child was born. She resided with her parents in Knoxville. Described as a quiet woman who always had her son with her, Helen had no known enemies. Stewart's luggage was retrieved from a locker in Gulfport, Mississippi. She was last seen awaiting the bus for Gulfport in Slidell, Louisiana, just outside of New Orleans. Helen and Howard's skulls had been smashed before they were thrown into the ocean.
Such a blunt force trauma.
But here we go. Second woman to die who worked at the knitting mill.
That seems
textile mill.
I mean, I know it could happen. You know, murder happens every day, but it just seems odd.
Both women had formerly been employed in the finishing department at the mill, so they worked directly with one another. Stewart was reportedly extremely frightened after Mary Hankins' murder, almost to the point of being paranoid, which her family thought was unusual.
Well, like she thinks she might be next, kind of thing.
Yes, absolutely.
And then she was murdered.
Yes.
What the hell?
An all-male jury found Leroy Young guilty of murder. He was given a life sentence in prison. Throughout the trial, Young proclaimed his innocence. He admitted to being sexually involved with Joanna on more than one occasion, but denied any knowledge of her death. So he is sent to prison, Dylan, and in 1961, his wife Wilma divorces him. In 1972, there was some discussion about giving Sprout an early release from prison, but that didn't happen. Now, I could not find any information about Sprout Young's death, but it is believed that he passed away as an inmate.
Well, good. And the only shame is he got to live his years out anywhere.
But what an unnecessary, I mean, this just seems like a senseless tragedy.
Now, when
this young girl's murder.
It's totally ridiculous.
For no reason.
No reason. There was no motive, just because he could. I mean, honestly, that's what it sounds like. And I swear it pisses me off when you have these crimes and the person goes away and then they're in jail for years, decades maybe, and now they're elderly and they're like, oh, I have health problems now. I don't give a fuck. Okay? Because when
you
you
murdered a 17-year-old
yeah,
girl,
and
you
when they
deserve
say
to be where you are.
When they say you're life without parole or they give you the death sentence, that is what that family heard, and that's that family's justice. And it is no one else's right to take that away. I don't care if it's some kind of review board. I don't care if it's citizens years later who all of a sudden feel sorry for some old man because now he's old and frail looking with health problems. He's a habitual
criminal.
He's a fucking monster who preyed on women and anyone else he could. So fuck that guy and kill him.
He's a habitual
Make
criminal.
sure they stay there.
He spent his entire
Yes.
life in trouble.
Yes.
And honestly, I'm not sure that Joanna was his first victim.
Why would, yeah, how could you not think that?
Because he's been involved in so many crimes. He's shot people. I mean, he's attempted to murder people.
He's a violent person.
You have multiple women who have accused him of sexual assault. I mean, this guy is public enemy number one. Let's be honest.
I'm not saying there's not been false accusations as far as rape and sexual assault. We all know that there has been. But when multiple different women over the years keep saying that you did something to them, I mean, come on. They're not all colluding against you to make you look bad or assassinate your character. You're doing something to those people. There's no doubt about it.
Well, and it sounds like this is a guy who gets women alone in his vehicle, and if they say no or whatever, he's going to do what he's going to do. And it sounds like that's exactly what happened with Joanna.
Yep.
Only he took it a step further and ended up murdering this girl.
Well, that's the same as dumb as the person's like, oh, I was stealing something. Then they come out and wrestle me and the gun went off like it's the person's fault. Well, just that's the same thing. Well, she told me no, then I got mad. That don't work for me.
Plus, you have to remember this is a 37-year-old man messing around, whether it was consensual or non-consensual. If it is consensual, she's 17.
Yeah, it's still gross.
You met her when she was 15 years old.
That's disgusting.
You know, you're 37 years old, married to a young woman.
Your fourth wife.
You're praying. Oh, and another thing I should mention, when they searched Sprout's apartment, they found a trunk that was full of pictures of like what they considered very young women.
There you go. That's his. So
he's a creep.
This is a batch of basically child porn back then. He sits around and looks at these pictures of really young girls.
He's gross.
It's disgusting. Now, and I hope he's dead, and I hope he died in prison because he doesn't deserve much better than that.
All right, Dylan. That has been our story today. The Sprout Young, the Rattlesnake Daddy. And I found an article that was actually published where the FBI, because he kept calling himself Rattlesnake Daddy, the FBI came out and said, look, he didn't write the song. They tracked down a radio DJ who was familiar with Bill Carlisle and had to basically tell them that he did not write the song. It was kind of an old mountain song or a song that had kind of, been a ballad of sorts that this guy, Bill Carlisle, finally recorded.
Right. And even Bill Carlisle wasn't claiming to have written the song.
No,
I'm gonna imagine.
But it was definitely not Sprout Young.
It's Sprout Young.
And the judge determined that that song couldn't be played in court because the prosecution wanted to play the song because it does have some.
Does it talk about being a badass
kind
or something?
of vulgar lyrics and that kind of thing?
Oh, okay.
Yes. And they were like, the song suits him to a T, and the judge ruled that they could not play Rattlesnake Daddy in court.
Well, I would argue as the defense, the relevance, Your Honor, and I would probably try to keep that out, let alone if it paints some.
But hey, later if you're feeling fun, you can find the Rattlesnake Daddy song. It's on Spotify.
I'm going to listen to it now.
I listened to it. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that, Heather, and thank you for our multiple today's sponsors.
Yes.
Over there on the Patreon, y'all. You're really warming our heart with your support as we set out on the road.
Thank you so much.
And until next time, I'm going to go eat all the damn shit Heather wants.
I know. You probably will, Dylan.
No, what you got to do is you got to get snacks you know I don't like.
No, I'm going to
See,
order.
it's your fault.
Okay, there's a place that has, quote, a world-famous BLT next door. They just specialize in various BLT sandwiches.
Well, and it's just how much bacon you want on there.
And it's so good. I'm going to get one of those, and I'm not sharing it with you.
Can I get one?
No.
Please?
Nope.
I won't eat the rest of it.
Can't have any. None for you.
You can't buy bacon and expect me not to eat it.
None for you, Dylan.
No more soup.
No soup for you.
All right. Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.